how can I level up? So many times, even with my coaching clients, they'll say to me, well, I see so and so and she's this and she's so that. But what they don't realize is this, that this is so important. If we can recognize an attribute in someone else, if we see it in someone else, it means that it's within us. We just haven't grown to the point where we're comfortable expressing that part of who we are. And so everything that we need is really inside of us, and the world around us creates a great framework or reflection on what's possible.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to my show. I am so excited to have you. My name is Tiffany, and this is Unveiling Journeys. Smidge about me. I absolutely love people. I love the power of networking, and I love being, it's going to sound silly, like kind of the dumbest person in the room when I walk in, because I want to be a sponge to absorb everything that everybody has to say. And so the power of some of these like high level masterminds I love to come to. Anyway, in all of that, whenever I get a chance to meet people, I always say, hey, who do you know that I need to know? But also, I know so many people that I think you need to know. So I want to come sharing that. And that's how I end up in the room with some incredible people. And that's why I have our amazing guest today. I cannot tell you how overjoyed I am that she's excited to be here with us too. Um, let's do this. I want to welcome Cate. Cate, welcome. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you're up to.
Tiffany, thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here with you. You're one of my favorite people. So right now I'm CEO of 638 Capital. We're a capital management company, and we offer private placement opportunities for ultra high net worth investors. But beyond that, I'm a coach. So I work with women who are mostly in senior or rising, women who are rising into senior leadership positions. And the work that I do there is really around self-image, stepping into that next level of power. And then rolled into that through that work, actually, Tiffany, I got involved with mental wellness and certified as a mental wellness coach. So we all know that the inside creates the outside, and how we feel about ourselves really creates the environment that we live in, our bodies, how we communicate, how we feel about the way that we communicate. So I've been in financial services for over 32 years, but this sector that I'm working in now is really, really exciting. And it seems like those three kind of capabilities seem to intertwine on a daily basis.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Some of the things that impressed me so much about just not just the stuff you've done, but that you continue to have what I like to describe as this ripple impact. Like every drop that you make with all the stuff that you're working on doesn't just stop with you, but it makes such a bigger impact. And that's what you keep utilizing and driving yourself to do. And that means so much to everybody out there in the business world that you get to impact. And just another reason why I was like, please, I want to tell more people about you. Come on the show.
Absolutely. One of the things, it's interesting because as much as we are different, we're really all the same. At the core of who we are, we want to make an impact. We want to know that our lives make a difference, that what we do during the day makes a difference, the work and the way that we serve in the world, that it makes a difference in someone's life or maybe in our community. And so at the core of who we are, we have that in common. And I always like to start with what we have in common rather than going to where we are at odds or where the differences are. But what we have in common is so strong and so valuable. And so I love to lead with that.
Oh, that's so cool. So let's do this. I want to circle all the way back. Let's start from the beginning. Tell everybody where you're from and like, what did you want to be when you were growing up? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I love the conversation around journey. Thank you. So I grew up on Long Island, very middle class family, two working parents, immigrants, came to this country. My grandparents did, and my mom was born here. My dad came as a young man of 17 and to get educated, went to school, got his PhD. So we grew up in a household where education was very, very important. Community was very, very important. Associations with family every Sunday. We had these huge family dinners. And so I grew up in that environment. But honestly, Tiffany, as I was a teenager, I actually modeled when I was a teenager and throughout college. I'm tall, I'm 5'10" and pretty slender still, thankfully. But that taught me about having a presence, having a confidence in who I am and the way that I was impacting people just with what I was wearing. So it started from a very early age. But I actually left home when I was 17. My dad said, "You're going to college. We have no idea how to pay for it, but we're going to send you off with a blessing and a prayer." And so I did. I put myself through college and met a military man. I worked in Northern Virginia, went to school, Virginia Tech, and moved back to Northern Virginia, like 80% of the Virginia Tech graduates, and met a military officer and married him shortly thereafter, had my son. And through that journey of being married to someone who was active duty, I mean, think about the lifestyle of a military member. You're moving, you're constantly making new friends, you're constantly integrating into new communities, and whether you live on base or off base. So it helped me to develop a resilience that really is a thread throughout my life. So, fast forward, we ended up separating and divorcing. I raised my son as a single mom, but we have a great relationship because one of the things that was so important to me was to lessen the impact on my son. Knew, when we have children, the children are a combination of the parents, and I could have gone so many different ways, but what I decided was that what was in the best interest of him. And when things came up that were sources of friction, for me, it was an opportunity to look within myself. And so that's when I actually started hiring coaches and looking for mentors. And early in my career, I went right into the mortgage industry right
Really?
out of college. Yes.
What'd you go to school for, though?
Yes, yes. So I studied business, business administration, but mostly I studied a lot of having fun and being a sorority sister and a fraternity little sister. Um, Finally, after 4.5 years, I said, "You know what? This is enough. It's time to graduate." Because remember, I was putting myself through college, so I was working full time. There were periods of time where I would drop out for a quarter, work full time or two jobs, and then go right back in. But my commitment was to finish. Even if it took me 4.5 years, I was going to finish. And so I did. That I did. And, I'm right into the mortgage business. And again, talking about mentors, my mentor in my very first job, his name was Bob, really taught me all about the mortgage industry, about the secondary marketing side of the industry, because that's really where most of my career was spent on that side, and just taught me every single thing I needed to know, went on sales calls with me when I was calling on lenders and banks, would show me how to make a presentation. I mean, I knew none of that, but I knew if I did exactly what he told me to do, that I would win. And that I did. So it was kind of interesting. I fast tracked up to being vice president of sales. And then I got married, married my husband, and moved all over the place. As you can imagine, as a commission salesperson, moving a lot is not a great idea. Right. Because you're starting over and over. But again, it was more about not identifying myself as the job, but understanding who I was in the job, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's incredible. Well, I think your thread through all of this has constantly been your resilience to be able to pick back up and start over again and make new friends and make new business relationships, because that's some people rely on that consistency to be an agent or a broker over through and through to live somewhere where they've been forever. And you're like reinventing yourself every move along
Yeah.
the way.
Yeah, I mean, reinvention is an absolutely a great word because when we reinvent ourselves, it's actually a tremendous opportunity for us to look within and say, what quality do I know that's inside of me that I can bring out right now? How can I level up? So many times, even with my coaching clients, they'll say to me, well, I see so and so and she's this and she's so that. But what they don't realize is this is so important. If we can recognize an attribute in someone else, if we see it in someone else, it means that it's within us. We just haven't grown to the point where we're comfortable expressing that part of who we are. And so everything that we need is really inside of us, and the world around us creates a great framework or reflection on what's possible. And when we look at life from the standpoint of what's possible, opportunities will come to us, funding will come to us, right relationships, right partnerships will all be attracted to the person that we've become because it's the essence of who we are. It's like that authenticity. People say love is the highest vibration. It's really not authenticity because when we're authentic, we're in harmony with our highest self.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Okay, you have had such a fun journey in this. I want to keep going deeper into it. So you're got yourself all the way up to VP of this company. You're moving all over the place. Tell me more of where it went.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when I think in the first 4 years of being married, we moved 3 times. And so finally, I got pregnant about 5 years into the marriage, and I said to my husband, "Hey, I'm gonna pause because, like, now we're moving again. I'm gonna have my baby in a new town, um, new state, new community, and so I'm gonna pause." And I told him, I said, "I'm gonna stay home for the first 5 years." He wasn't really thrilled because, when well, if you're in commission sales and you do well, it's a good income, it's a good living for the family. But I decided to step down, and he eventually agreed. And so I was a stay-at-home mom for 5 years. And then as soon as my son got into school full time, I decided that I wanted to step back in the arena. And so at that point, it was kind of interesting, Tiffany, because at that point we were living in Montgomery, Alabama, and there were not a lot of jobs in the mortgage industry. There were a few regional banks with people and officers who had been there for 20, sometimes 25 years. And so when we went to meet with our financial planner who had an office in Montgomery, Alabama, our planner said to me, "Well, why don't you just get licensed and sell investments and insurance, and you can focus on military families?" Because I knew the culture. And so I quick studied and passed all of my exams. And then I was doing, for a couple of years, I was doing financial planning for military families, which was extremely rewarding because it's kind of a community that, not so much now, but back then, they were sort of forgotten in terms of the financial planning world.
Mm,
And so the company that I worked for really focused on military families, which was, again, you and I were talking about, like, serving people in a really great way. It was a way that I felt like I could give back and do something good, not only in that moment, but something that could impact them for generations to come.
that as a former military wife myself, I remember them just thinking, well, the government's going to take care of you, right? Like, well, what if they don't have a 25-year retirement plan, just a 4-year active duty and out plan? Like
Yeah.
I love that you identified that you're able to help that division of people that were kind of being left behind in that. Cause I just think, well, get there when we get there. Like, no, we have to plan for this, or we're failing to plan by planning to fail, just type of a thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
It helps us make good decisions when we are aware, when we become more aware. So in this case, more aware of what the financial opportunities were, more aware of what role insurance could play in the life of an estate, or in the estate planning process. Once they're aware, then they can make good decisions. Like, I never aimed to sell somebody something. I wanted to help them understand what it could possibly do for them in their lives and equip them with enough information to make a really great decision for what they wanted. Because we all want different things, but at the end of the day, security, especially financial security, is right there at the top of the list.
Right, right, yeah. You have to think about that stuff, and it's nice to be able to have someone like you. I feel very, like, safe in this, like, non-threatening environment where you're not just pushing something on them, but being like, "Hey, you have a unique s everybody lined up has a unique, situation that they're in. Let's find something that fits you." I imagine you were a great fit for working on that with all the people that you were working with. So, you're doing this, what did you do from there? Like, how long were you in that role?
Let's see, I was in that role. I was with that company for 4 years. And it was after that assignment, after that military assignment, is when my husband and I split up. So I moved back to Northern Virginia, which is where my parents were at the time, with my son. And really started over in the mortgage industry again. At that time, it was very close to the credit crisis, 2006, leading up to 2007 and 8. And then in 2008, it's interesting because, Tiffany, every time something like that happens where we feel like it could be catastrophic or the worst thing ever, if we reframe what's going on and look for the opportunity inside of what's going on around us, we can always find a greater path. And so really that's what happened to me. I was not conscious of it at the time, but the credit crisis really pivoted me into global consulting. And so I did some work for the government. And then I had a full-time role with Booz Allen, um, did some contract work for one of the mortgage insurance companies, and then found a full-time role at KPMG in mortgage advisory. So I got to take everything that I knew and learned about the mortgage business, both sales and operations, and parlay that into an opportunity to help top 10 banks level up, particularly target operating models. I mean, I don't know if you know, back then, the regulatory landscape was um, it was unsure, it was changing. We had Dodd-Frank, and so a lot of changes going on in the mortgage industry, and to be able to help shepherd executives through that time from both an operations and a sales perspective was really, really exciting. And then from there, from KPMG, I was actually recruited by Fannie Mae to help them to actually implement a new operating model, a lean management model. And that was really, really rewarding. It was very complex culture, very interesting culture, I would say, a very matrixed organization. But I learned so much when I was there, not only about the industry and how it works on the back end, but also learned about myself. And so I was there for a little over 2 years. And then at that point, I stepped away from corporate. I knew that there was more that I wanted to do. What really rose up in me during those last couple of years in corporate was the fact that I knew I wanted to be creative. I knew I was really, really good at running a company and creating companies and setting up frameworks and structures. And I knew that I was really, really good at that. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on myself. I had just written the last check for my son's tuition, college tuition. And I was like, okay, off the payroll, maybe. Maybe some parents can relate to that. But I said, you know what? If I'm going to bet on anything, I'm going to bet on myself because I know at the end of the day, whatever it is, I'll make it work. And so that's what I did.
Imagine, like, trying as hard as you tried for all those companies to invent and create and manage all of this, just pouring right back into yourself. That's incredible to, I guess, trust yourself, right? To go into that and start
Yeah.
something brand new.
Yeah, you have to have the trust. But most of all, what I learned is that, there's something called an operating paradigm. We have it as individuals, companies have them. It's really more known as corporate culture, but a paradigm is simply a group of habits that we operate from, we make decisions from, we see the world through those beliefs. And what I learned is that in large organizations, as much as they say they want to change, a lot of times they really don't.
Right.
A lot of times they really don't. They kind of default back. It's like when you go on a diet and then you're on this diet for 8 months, and then all of a sudden you revert back to your old habits. There's that strong pull to the familiar.
Mm, yeah,
There's that
absolutely.
strong pull to the comfort. And when we yield to that, that's really the pivot point. It's a point of inflection that says, you know what? Either I could continue to work on creating this new habit, or I could fall back to the familiar and just be comfortable. And it's a point of opportunity, but it's also a very dangerous point because if you fall back, when we say we want something, Tiffany, and then we don't do anything about it, it actually eats away at our self-image, at the way that we see ourselves.
That is like a bit worth chewing on, that some people probably needed that tough love today to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a conversation with a woman yesterday and she's been so let's see, I've been certified in the coaching work since mid 2019. She was my very first client, and she's been dipping her toe in and out for the last 4.5 years, like wanting to even grow more, wanting to create something new in the world, wanting to level up and create something of impact and significance. But she keeps going back to that comfort zone. Like, a lot of us, I mean, money is an interesting topic. We're not here to talk about money, but one of the things that I've learned is that when we allow just money to drive our decisions, it's generally not the right decision. When we come from a place of what would I absolutely love? What would I love to create? Even with 638 Capital and working with these programs, what would I love to create here? It's much more than just offering, than a product offering. It's, I want to create an experience that's expansive and that brings aliveness and opportunity to everyone that I work with. That's something that you can bring to your business that everybody can bring to their business, right?
Absolutely. And if you can't invent this up for yourself, then turn to someone that's been there, done that, and can give you the model or the book or the something because you have to kind of think bigger than you when you run your own business constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mentioned my first mentor in the mortgage industry, Bob. I'm still friends with him all these years later, decades, which I love because I still get to learn. I still get to grow, and our conversations have shifted, but they're still absolutely wonderful. In 2019, when I got into coaching, I connected with Bob Proctor, and many people may know the name Bob Proctor. He passed away mid 2022, but I got certified in his work, and then I got to work with him as part of his inner circle. And one of the things that he taught me was that he was the one that taught me that if you bet on anything, bet on yourself.
Hmm.
And he also told me, he said that people operate through their beliefs based on what they believe. But a lot of times what they believe is subconscious. Like, they're not consciously aware, because the conscious mind is the thinking mind. It's the educated mind. It's the mind that we go to when we want to regurgitate information or talk about data or statistics. But the subconscious mind is the heart of who we are. And a lot of times those beliefs are instilled in us as children.
Yeah. Right.
And so we continue to operate from those beliefs until we have somebody that comes to shine the light of awareness on a belief that's not serving us. And when we realize, when we become consciously aware, we have an opportunity to change. And I believe people don't want to be changed, but they like change. They don't want to stay the same because our natural inclination is growth. Like, the human expression, the human experience is for a fuller, freer expression. That's why people say they want financial freedom or financial independence. It's that sense of tangible freedom that I can do whatever I want whenever I want.
This is incredible. Like the stuff that I can imagine if somebody had some intense little mini one-on-one sessions with you or max one-on-one sessions with you, it'd get good. It would get phenomenal according to the stuff you've learned from and the places you can help people go and pull that out from deep within inside someone. Let me ask you, with all the work that you're doing, you could hang up your hat, right? And just like kick up your feet, but why do you keep showing up? Like, do you keep caring so much?
Well, I understand that whatever age really doesn't matter. I mean, in our human experience, we've concocted this thing called time and years and age and all of that. But I really believe that we're at a time in our industry, the financial industry, or even like the family office industry, or even in the world and society, we're at a time where we need wisdom. People are looking for wisdom. They're looking for ways to connect with the essence of who they are. And honestly, that's what throws the covers off for me, because if I can impact even one life every single day for the rest of my life, I will have won. My son grew up, I hope it's a blessing to him, but he's 28 now, going on 29, married with a little boy. And he grew up with these principles like, buddy, you can do anything, whatever it is you want to do. You want to try lacrosse, you want to try hockey, you want to try basketball. We did it all. But I knew at some level it was all about him. It wasn't about me. It was about impacting a life so that he could grow in the confidence and the expertise of who he is, understanding who he is. Sometimes we do things, and if we stop and think, like, why did I just do that? Like, I know I've been there. I've made mistakes. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, why did I just say that? Or why did I answer that way? And it may have been like a moment when you were not thinking, and generally it is, we're not thinking. Thinking is the highest form of intellect. Like, all animals have five senses, but they can't think and create for themselves. They adapt to their environment. They conform. We're not created to conform. We're created to be creators. Yep. And so my financial planner asked me, he said, when do you plan to retire? And I said, I don't think I have a date. Maybe the last day of my last breath. I'll say it that way. But yeah, I think we have, particularly when we have children, this is my personal belief, that we have the responsibility, because what we don't shift in terms of our family generational patterns, what we don't shift, we will pass on to our children.
100%. I believe that because I was raised by a mom who said you could do whatever you wanted to do, which is why I thought I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to the moon, you know?
Yes.
Then I realized I don't like physics. How can I get there otherwise? I'm like, I need to pay Russia. And now I could just pay the United States to get there. So, but I wanted to carry that through to my kids to understand that I want to be their biggest cheerleader, to let them question the world and figure out why, even though they're only 5 and 7 now, but for them to know I've got their back behind this and that to be able to channel their thoughts to make that happen. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bob Proctor myself. So your thoughts or your limiting belief, or like the quote, like Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Bob, he read Think and Grow Rich for 61 years. I've read that book a couple of times. It's very, very good. One standout from that book is number one, the chapter on decision. We really don't learn how to make decisions. Most people don't understand that you can only make a decision in the moment. Like if I say I'm going to wait until Monday to make a decision, it means that right now my answer is no. Now, it could mean that I, I want more information, or I have one more person that I want to get input from or get a perspective on, or data or something. But when we're at some point, we have to make decisions. And people who stay in that place of ambiguity stay in a place of struggle, because think of what ambiguity is. It's like one foot on one side of the fence and one foot on the other side of the fence. And so many times in business, that's how we approach decision making.
Hmm.
It's different. I mean, in corporate, you want to socialize ideas. You want to make sure that um, that the ideas are going to be adopted if they're implemented. So there's a little bit of a different dynamic. But I'm talking about personal decisions. Like when I decided to hire a coach, when I decided to work with Bob, it was a decision. I made a decision on the spot, on the phone. I called. It was Proctor Gallagher Institute at that point. I called PGI and I said, I want to get certified. I want to work with Bob. And this is what I want to do. And this is how I want to do it. And they said, okay, that's going to be $30,000 to enroll in the program. I was like, okay, did not blink an eye. Now, I know that there are some people that can't do that readily, but there are a lot of people that can, that say, well, you know what? But maybe I want to do, like renovate the bathroom, or like they put everything else before themselves.
Hmm.
And there's no judgment. I'm not saying that anything is right or wrong. What I am saying is that we bring ourselves wherever we go. Like we are the product. Like I am the company. You are the company. I represent, when I'm coaching women, I represent the principles and the tools and the techniques and the universal law. I'm a representative of that. So how I'm living that out in their presence gives them an example or a reflection of what it can do for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That's like we circle all the way back to like the power of being authentic and
Yeah.
showing up for you being you. And I had a couple of chats with a few people that were like, let me mentor you for a sec, Tiff. Like, don't be 600 versions of you. Be you all the time, which I thought I was, but maybe I wasn't. And I needed to have more alignment in being who I feel like I am in front of everyone. That's so cool.
Well, we see so many examples in front of us. What's important to understand, when I was out in California, I used to spend a lot of time in California when I was with Fannie Mae. And one of the things I noticed when I was driving on the 5 was that people went super fast, but they all stayed in their lane. I mean, maybe it was just my experience, but they all stayed in their lane. And I got this beautiful metaphor, this image in my head. I remember when I was out there, and I said to myself, you know what? This is a great metaphor for life. Like somebody can be racing by me to the left and to the right, but I'm staying in my lane because I like my lane and I like who I am.
I love that. At this point, everybody's thinking, I need to know you more. How do I get to know you? How do I seek you out so that I can just have a chat with you and feel out like, let's be friends. I want you to mentor me. Where do you want people to come find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think LinkedIn is the best place. Right now, I don't have a website, for at least for my coaching, and for 638, it's still being built out. Yeah, LinkedIn is my platform of choice. Message me on LinkedIn, friend me on LinkedIn. I would love to get to know you. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. And if you're like, I can't find her, friend me. I will get you with her. You have to, it'll be in the show notes below so you can click into it. You are wonderful. I'm so happy that our paths
Thank you.
connected. Is there, let's do this. Is there any, you've littered so many amazing nuggets. What do you want your final nugget? And we'll wrap up the show with that. Your final piece of advice you want to leave with everyone.
Gosh, I think final piece of advice would be to live your life. You can learn from other people's lives, you can learn from other people's choices, but their choices aren't necessarily your choices. What they're doing may or may not be right for you. The most important thing in this life, I believe, is to get to know the gifts and talents that we have within ourselves, and then to be able to find a way that brings us joy in expressing those talents. It's like Bob used to say to me, people would ask him all the time, you have no hobbies, like what, like all you do is work, because he loved it. And that's kind of how I am. And so I think that's probably why we got along so well. But I would say find what brings you joy. I mean, working a 9 to 5 right now at this point in my life doesn't feel like it would bring me a lot of joy. Maybe it would if it was the right role, but doing what I love in terms of helping people become the best version of who they are and make better choices for themselves, that I think is the ultimate. So I would say stay in your lane, get to know who you are. If you have to list out all your gifts and talents, list out, if anything was possible for me, what would I love? That's a great question to journal about, and then go from there, see what comes from it.
Wonderful. This has been amazing. I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you for coming and being on the show. Thank you guys for staying for the whole episode. I know you've been blessed by the chat that we've had with Cate today. Come see me on some more episodes and then go friend Cate. She wants to be there as a wonderful person and these amazing pieces of advice that she's littering out to everybody. So
Yeah,
with that,
I'd love to know what impacted them for sure.
I love that. Absolutely. Send her a message, tell her what you loved about this, and I will chat with you guys on the next episode. Bye for
Thank you,
now.
Tiffany. Thank you so much.